For me, the number one value is integrity. And by integrity, I don't only mean truthfulness and honesty, I mean integrated, as in wholeness. I think that our modern life has us constantly fragmented. We're fragmented by a life of distraction in the attention economy, but we're also fragmented by being pulled in multiple directions by seemingly competing values and priorities in our lives. Like, do I devote myself to my gig to make money,
Mm,
or do I devote myself to my art to make a life of fulfillment and purpose? Are those two things opposite from each other?
mm,
And I'm really moved by instances where I can show up and be my whole self. And the great writer and theologian Parker Palmer says that wholeness is creating spaces between us where our souls feel safe enough to show up
mm,
and claim our lives.
mm,
So the question for everyone listening is, where does your soul feel safe enough to show up? And not only show up and show you that glimmer of, oh, right, I'm here, but how do you allow your soul to actually completely claim your life?
mm.
So we're not being guided by, what we think we should be doing to act right or be right by somebody else's narrative, but how do we trust enough so that we let our souls guide us?
Mm.
That to me is a life of integrity.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I hadn't heard it positioned in that way before. I guess let me start here, Vijay. What does it look like for your soul to feel that, to actually live in the way in which you're explaining with integrity? Because as I often say on this show, I think a lot of times people hear some of these things and concepts and they get it, but they don't really know what it means and what it looks like. So it's hard for them to make it real in their lives. What is that maybe in your life? What does that look like? How do you know when you're living in that way?
Mhm. For me, it's a body feeling.
Mm,
I'm very lucky to make my life playing an instrument. I play the violin, and I've played the violin since I was 4 years old. So
mm,
I've played the violin for as long as I've had memory, probably for as long as I've had speech. And I understand how my soul is doing based on how I hear my playing.
mm,
And so I can kind of gauge, and I don't mean just technically. Like, I think a lot of people who play music or play an instrument can tell, like, like that one lick that I'm trying to learn on the guitar, or the passage I'm trying to learn on the violin or trying to sing. Oh, it's just not coming out the right because I don't have the technique. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about that feeling where you disappear.
mm,
You as someone who's making art, and I think we feel this in conversations, especially when you're having a conversation with someone who you love or someone who you
mm,
connect with. You lose your sense of self, that element of transcendence, that feeling of, I don't have an I anymore. I've sublimated myself into something bigger.
mm,
That to me is a body feeling, and it's a
mm,
body feeling of no longer clenching my gut, no longer feeling that kind of that calcified armor in my heart around my chest, feeling my hands soft and my shoulders open. It's that kind of feeling. It's the feeling I have when I'm walking my dog on a beautiful day. It's just like me and him, just like, hey, buddy, like we're here. He's
mm.
actually licking my leg right now as we're talking. Um, but it's the kind of thing too where, okay, that can still be, heard as a kind of like heighty concept, a weighty concept. Integrity to me is also being truthful and feeling safe enough to not have to lie. And I mean, like, not have to say an untruth, but also to not have to lie with your whole being, to not have to position or perform or bend yourself into this pretzel where you're fitting somebody else's shape.